Welcome to our presentation about conversation mapping. What you see below is a conversation map. Conversation mapping is a way to capture people's thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, and their questions. It's a way to get a lot of information from a lot of people in a very short period of time. Perhaps one of the most important things about conversation mapping, though, is that it can break through hierarchies. In other words, the boss and his employees can be sitting around a table making comments, and every comment has equal value when you're doing a conversation map. And nobody really knows at the end of it who said what, when, or where. How does conversation mapping work? In general, there are about 5 to 7 people at each table. If you're going to do more than one conversation map, you want each table of people to work for about 20 minutes, and then you switch, moving from map to map. The maps can have the same concept that everyone is working from, or they can have different ones. What does a conversation map look like? Well, you always have to start with a trigger. That trigger is a concept, an idea, a question about the issues that you are concerned about. From there, someone might write a concern, someone else a question, and a third person a comment. Everyone is reading everyone else's questions, concerns, and comments, and perhaps the next person comes along and answers that first question, but another comes along and disagrees. How does that translate into reality? Say we have a trigger, healthy water system. The first person, they think about infrastructure. We need to improve infrastructure because the town is growing. The because is important here. It isn't just about we need to improve infrastructure. We need a reason why. So every time you have a comment, you want the because in there so people better understand where you're coming from. The next person, they have a different approach to a healthy water system. They're concerned. They say, I don't trust the system because last year we had to boil our water. So another person around the table, well, they want to comment on infrastructure. They're concerned about how do we do that when the community has no money. They have a question. Someone might answer that question, or others might add their own questions to it. Another person, they're concerned about the safety of the system as well, but they're not even sure if it's still safe to drink, so they're building on the first comment with a question of their own. This is how conversation mapping works, and it will continue on until the crowd is pretty much drained and all of the information that was in their heads is now down on paper. A finished conversation map looks something like this, although there may be even more information than what you see in this diagram. The most important thing is that conversation mapping is about writing. It's about writing your questions about the trigger issue. It's about writing your comments about the trigger issue, or even your disagreements with the comments or the questions. But the most important thing about conversation mapping is there's no talking. Everything is about writing. And you'll find that as people are concentrating on their comments or their questions, they won't be paying so much attention to what you're doing. And who wrote what gets lost in the shuffle, and everybody's equal on a conversation map. Finally, at the end of the conversation map, what you're going to be looking for are emergent themes. You follow those bubbles of comments, questions, issues, answers, disagreements out to the end, and you find that certain themes will emerge. So if a water system safety is one of your triggers, then perhaps at the end of it, of the long string of comments and questions, you realize that what people are really talking about is long-term capacity planning. That's what we need. Or perhaps we should provide ongoing education because we're concerned about the fact that we had to boil water. Or maybe community education will be necessary because this is going to cost money and the community needs to understand it. These emergent themes are ways of identifying the key issues that are concerning your community after the community has spent maybe an hour or so dumping their brains into the conversation map. It's a quick, easy, and pretty much fun way to get as much information down on paper in as little time as possible. And that's conversation mapping.